The Nothing Phone 1 is being sold with promises of clean, unobtrusive and updated software that looks very similar to what you'll find on Pixel phones. But just how different is it? Well, sit back and relax and let us give you a full tour of all of its intricacies. Thanks for watching 9to5Google here on YouTube. Remember to thumbs up, hit subscribe and then tap the bell icon to be among the first to watch our upcoming videos. So here we have a freshly restored Nothing Phone 1. I'm going to go through the setup procedure to let you know what's new. Hopefully it's not going to be too drastic, it's not going to be too different. And then we're going to dive into the wider differences between Nothing OS and what you'll find on Pixel phones, because this is basically a carbon copy of what you'll find on Pixel phones, but with a few extra changes to take advantage of some of the hardware and some of the features that are available on this device. So let's go and get this powered on. Take a few seconds, hold that power button. As you'll see the Nothing logo there, powered by Android, as you'd expect. Should run through a basic setup procedure and then we can get logged in. So now we've hit the welcome screen. This is slightly different to what you'll see on Pixel phones. It's just hello, you can change your region here as well. I'm in the UK, so I'm going to stick with that. I already have a SIM card in there. The gestures don't seem to be working at this point in time, so we'll have to use the back button there. Tap the big red button to proceed. And we can connect to a Wi-Fi network as we need. I can set this up offline, and we'll go through the setup offline process, any local network. So you can just quickly connect as you'd expect, set up offline. And it will quickly tell me to adjust the time and date. That's completely wrong, but we'll go with it for now. And this is all pretty much standard setup procedure for Android, except all the settings there. We'll set a basic pin for this. We'll go 1111. Can show you the fingerprint scanner enrollment process. Confirm. Now we can set up our fingerprint scanner for unlocking. So let's just set that up now and go through that procedure. You'll notice as well straight away that the fingerprint scanner is quite low in the screen. So, but a lot lower than I would anticipate. We'd maybe want something around here like you found on Pixel phones and maybe a lot of other smartphones out there, but it is an optical scanner as well. So as long as we hit it in this area, you'll see that as we're registering it, it will show on this little circular icon, each little semicircle of how much I've registered of my fingerprint. We'll just go through the process. Pretty painless, pretty standard, little vibration when you get feedback for how you've done that. So if I quickly adjust my fingerprint around, get all of that covered, done and dusted, we have one fingerprint enrolled. Now we're offered the option to obscure lock screen content. Again, this is all pretty much standard for a lot of Android setup procedures. Press done there. And we're going to accept some terms and conditions. You can read those. In fact, I'll scroll through those. We'll have a little look through those really quick. You just see they're pretty much standard. Quite a long document as well. Okay, I'm happy with that. Privacy policy. Just in explaining how your data is collected and any data that you provide. You can obviously opt out of these options, but initially you will have to accept this to get your device set up and running. And then there's a little bit of a further screen just saying how some of your device data may be analyzed and used if you do send that on to improve Nothing OS. So we've hit the first proper setup menu option that you won't have seen on previous devices, and that's for the Glyph light up panel at the rear. And that will explain that you can use this for contacts and general notifications, and by the actual light pattern, you will see who it is calling, contacting you, texting you, whatever it happens to be. The options that you have available, you can delve into them. We'll delve into it further in this video, but the next section on is just setting up your system navigation. You can set out to gestures, which hopefully you'll be using gestures, and then we get a welcome screen. That's it. We are into Nothing OS proper. I'm on 5G, so we're going to have a network connection to update as we need to, but overall, that's it. Pretty painless, pretty easy, nothing too difficult, and that's the setup procedure. So we've had a quick look at the setup procedure on the Nothing Phone OS, or Nothing OS as it's actually known, but let's compare this directly to the Pixel 6 Pro, because I know a lot of you out there were wondering just how this differs from what is the version of Android that is currently running on Pixel phones. So I have the Pixel 6 Pro here, and the Nothing Phone OS in my right hand. As it stands, you don't actually have the always-on display settings available on Nothing OS right out of the box. You actually have to enable that, and I'm going to show you that in just a moment. But just comparing the lock screens, you can see that there are some big similarities between Nothing OS 1.0, and Android 12L or 12.1 that's running here on my Pixel 6 Pro. You can see that dual layered clock icon right in the middle, but obviously it's much larger and more prominent here on the Pixel 6 Pro, while Nothing OS uses that dot matrix style or dot matrix text that has been kind of prominent in all of their marketing campaigns. It's a lot smaller. It definitely is a striking look, but as well you can see there is a version of the at-a-glance widget. It definitely has a little bit more information there. It has text-based information about the current weather conditions, whereas the Pixel 6 Pro just has the weather and the temperature in icon format, and obviously text for the temperature itself, and then obviously you can see the date there too. So quite similar. With the in-display fingerprint scanner, it's slightly lower in screen, and the icon is very much more minimal here, and it's a bit more obvious on the Pixel 6 Pro. But getting these both unlocked, it's actually quite hard to tell the two apart, save the wallpapers. With the Nothing OS 1, you'll notice that this stock wallpaper is installed as standard. I've left that on just for the purposes of this video. Obviously, I have something slightly different here on the Pixel 6 Pro, but they have a widget which kind of mimics the at-a-glance widget on the Pixel 6 Pro. That's obviously not movable if you use the Pixel launcher. On Nothing OS and the Nothing launcher, this is movable and fully removable as you see fit. You can customize that as well. It does offer some of the same information, but as far as I'm aware, it doesn't show calendar, invites, and all that kind of stuff, which is a little bit of a disappointment. Let's just quickly, though, look at the notification shade. I think this is where most of the prominent changes you'll notice right away are. So if you slide this down on both, you can see that Nothing OS has 6 quick settings tiles compared to just the 4 as standard on the Pixel 6 Pro. And that's with good reason, as Nothing OS actually has a prominent mobile data or internet toggle. For some reason, it just shows mobile data as standard. There's also that Bluetooth option as well if you want to connect to devices. And then you can customize these 4, which work just the same as they do on the Pixel 6 Pro and the Pixel 6 and Android 12 on Pixel devices. You can also see as well this notifications pause by Do Not Disturb, which I have enabled for the purposes of this video. In Android 12L, it's centralized. This is running Android 12, not 12.1 or 12L, so it's adjusted to the top as it did previously when that stable released late last year. So let's scroll these down, and you'll see some more differences here with the notification shade. Right, so first and foremost, you'll see 2, I think they're called blobs. It's a larger toggle for mobile data. This, you can swipe this across, and it includes Wi-Fi, which I'm currently connected to, and hotspot options, all housed within the one toggle. That actually means that you can actually add a toggle for Wi-Fi or for mobile data or for hotspot within this lower section, which is basically the home for all of your other quick settings toggles. That's the same for Bluetooth, but there's going to be another change I'm going to show you in just a moment. As with on the Pixel 6 Pro, the internet toggle, this will open up basically your wider internet settings. You have to delve in there and adjust that as you see fit. On the Nothing OS version 1.1 or 1.0, you tap this and this opens up the older internet tile, but this includes options to quickly enter the hotspot mode, enable mobile data, disable mobile data, and Wi-Fi from one section, whereas on the Pixel 6 Pro running Android 12.1, you don't actually have that option. It's just totally for internet and Wi-Fi connectivity is what they mean by that. You can obviously go into more settings here, and that's the same on this. You can quickly connect to Wi-Fi connections as you would. So there's one pretty sizable difference between the two devices, the two versions of Android 12, even though this one is a newer version. And then if we just open the notification shade again, you'll see that the Bluetooth section, if you just tap that on the Pixel 6 Pro and Android 12 running on Pixel devices, that actually disables Bluetooth. Here on Nothing OS, tapping opens up a quick connect section for Bluetooth devices, so I can quickly connect to anything I've previously added to my device or anything that I haven't added. Obviously, you can see that settings tile. That means that I can adjust the settings for those devices that I've previously paired with. Anything that I haven't paired with is down here because I don't have that option. But obviously, this will just keep refreshing, looking for devices. Nothing too drastic, but I do actually quite like this. It's quite a good way of being able to quickly connect to devices such as Bluetooth headphones, speakers, anything, you name it. You don't have to go into Bluetooth settings like that. You can just do this all from your home screen, basically. That's not all, as you may have noticed that the brightness toggle or the brightness slider is slightly lower here than it is up here in 12L. I think this is better for reachability. I'm not sure how much difference it'll make if people are using how they use their phones. They might use it two-handed and adjust this or use auto brightness. But I think that is a great usability tool. I'm not as convinced that it works best there. I maybe would have been preferred it down at this bottom section, especially for reachability, but that's by the by. You may also quickly notice as well that this section down at the bottom includes, this is a 6-tile layout rather than the 8-tile layout when it's fully expanded. It doesn't appear that you can actually adjust these 2 major blobs at the top. I've not found a way to do that just yet. You can, that's, as far as I'm aware, that's all you can do. You can just leave this Bluetooth and mobile data or Bluetooth and internet all up there. Everything else here you can adjust as you would using that edit tile at the bottom. Things are a little bit more rounded here. They're a little bit more squared off on Android 12L versus Nothing OS. But yeah, there isn't a great deal different. But beyond that, you have a Glyph tile as well, because I'll talk about that in just a moment. But most of the quick settings toggles that you'd expect are all present and correct. You can add these and they're available within that tiled format. But obviously at the bottom as well, you have the edit, your power controls, and then there's the wider settings or quick option to go to the settings menu. But we'll talk about that in just a moment. Back on the home screen, there are some other differences that we need to talk about. You can see that the gesture pill that is going to change in Android 13 is still the thin version here. It's that thick, more prominent gesture bar that you'll see here in Nothing OS. When we actually long press though, the quick pop-up menu that appears here is definitely more visually appealing on Android 12L. Hopefully we'll get that on a new version of Nothing OS to add that quick wallpaper picker. But as you know, just quickly notice, wallpaper and style is replaced here with customization. So widgets and home settings, they remain the exact same. Customization is effectively a 2-pronged menu. So if I tap wallpaper and style here on the Pixel 6 Pro, that takes me straight to my customization options. Whereas on the Nothing OS, tap customization, we go into a sub-menu, which lets you select things like the icon pack. Obviously you can download those from the Play Store. And weirdly, this seems to show the AOSP wallpaper that was updated previously in Android 12. So that's an interesting thought experiment. Anyway, when we go to the wallpaper and style option, you can tap that. This is very, very similar, but it weirdly seems to show the Pixel lock screen here, even though that's not applied in Nothing OS. Everything remains the same. It will select a wallpaper or themes based upon your colors. So anything such as these particular quick setting tiles will be themed from here. You can also, much like you can on the Pixel, set a basic color based upon 4 presets. The 12L does actually introduce more basic colors. Sorry, Android 13 even adds more colors. You can just adjust this and change the app grid. Unfortunately though, you only have a few app grid options. You have 4x5 and 5x5 in Nothing OS, which is a bit disappointing. So if you want full customization, I'd say maybe look at a new launcher for the Nothing OS and Nothing Phone 1. So let's quickly dip back into the home screen. And as you can see, there are a few other things. There's a persistent Google search widget. It's not at the bottom like it is. It's just above the dock at the bottom of your screen on Nothing OS. This can't be removed, sorry. It can't be removed here either on the Pixel. But then if we swipe left, Google Discover feed, there are some slight changes here. There seems to be a search bar appearing on Nothing OS. I'm not sure if that's just something to do with the UI test, but obviously there's the Google logo here on the Pixel, so maybe something to do with the actual version of the Google app on my phone as opposed to Discover itself, but it's pretty much the same on both devices. Let's go back here to the home screen and let's go up into the app drawer. So the app drawer is identical, except for the fact that you have the option to search in both phones, tap the 3-dot menu, and you can always choose the always show keyboard option. The difference here is that when you search on Nothing OS, it's only going to search for applications installed. So for instance, if I search for Disney, it's just going to come up with that. Whereas on Android 12, on Pixel phones, you actually have that universal device search, and that will find things related to an application. It's much more in-depth in Android 13, but in Android 12 and 12L, it will pick up maybe actions from within applications. So this is clearly a tab from within the Disney application. Here it's just straight to the application and that is all. But that said, it's still a nice option if you do want to have that always show keyboard option if you have a lot of applications and you just don't find yourself scrolling or find yourself scrolling too much and just quickly want to type in and find the app that you want. So that's most of the major home screen changes. I just want to quickly show some of the widgets here on Nothing OS that you don't have access to here on Pixel. So if I go in here, the widgets that were talked about during the keynote don't seem to be available just yet. So there's no NFT widget that I can find on the phone, at least at this early stage. But there are 4 widgets that come pre-installed as part of the Nothing launcher. You may have seen this in the pre-release version. There is just an analog clock, a digital clock, which uses that dot matrix text, a weather widget, and then this quick look, which is effectively just at a glance, but for Nothing OS. Other than that, there is not a great deal here that you won't find on other smartphones and other Android-powered phones. There's the Android S Easter egg, because obviously this is still technically running Android S, Android 12, whereas over here, this is the exact same. You should have the same options. It's just the same pop-up, basically. There is not much difference. You get previews, and it'll give you some indication of widgets that you might want to put on your home screen. Sometimes that's based upon app usage. Sometimes it's pretty random like it is here. But overall, not much different in the grand scheme of things. Right, so let's delve into the settings menu to give you some changes here that you might not have realized or you might not have known were going to be here. In the settings menu on Nothing OS, there's actually no profile icon that you can see there on the Pixel. The text here is, I'm not sure if that's Roboto, that's probably going to be a standard Android 12 font, whereas this is used here, the text used on the Pixel is that Google Sans text. And as you can see, that's that dot matrix style that is synonymous with Nothing here on Nothing OS. But overall, it seems to be pretty much the same. As you can see, there is one extra menu here, Glyph interface. I'll delve into that in just a moment and show you what that can do, because that all relates to that pretty interesting back LED setup. But overall, it seems to be pretty much the same. You have all of the same standard controls, everything from passwords, safety and accounts, the safety and emergency toggles, system, about phone, although the tips and support is just simply a quick setting or a quick option to go to the Pixel Tips app, which is missing here too. But if we scroll up to the top, the search settings, that works just as it would. You can just tap that and then hit search. You'll find anything you need to do. There's an icon missing there and it will show my history. Obviously I haven't searched here, and you can tap that top button and clear that because I have options that were there previously. You may remember earlier in the video I did mention that the always on display toggle is actually not set on the Nothing Phone 1, so you actually have to find that, whereas it is enabled by default here on Pixel. So if we go down to display, you'll see there are some slight differences here in how it's actually worded. So we'll have to go into the lock screen option on both devices, and you'll see that there is no option for always on display in here, whereas on the Nothing OS 1.0 build, to actually activate always on display mode, you'll have to always show basic info of lock screen. So effectively, I don't know why, they've hidden this behind this toggle rather than just calling it always on display. We enable that, quickly turn these both off. You'll now see that we have a lock screen. So it is very similar to what I just showed you earlier. The lock screen is almost the exact same as it was. It just shows that, and then what will happen is this will disappear for the fingerprint scanner after a few seconds. You just get this time and the current date format and whatnot. But this will consume extra battery life, but I don't really foresee any major issues with battery degradation as a result of using the always on display. It's pretty power efficient nowadays, but that's how to activate the always on display mode on the Nothing Phone 1. There's also, I'll quickly go back into the settings menu. There is another option within settings that you've probably spotted straight away, and it's actually one of the core selling points. It's Glyph interface, which is obviously missing on the Pixel. So if I put the Pixel aside, I'm going to delve into this and show you just how this works and what this option gives you on Nothing OS. So this is Glyph interface section. This is basically controls every aspect of the interesting 5 LED light strip setup on the black and white model of Nothing Phone 1. So if you delve in here, you'll be able to do things like customize your ringtone, adjust this lighting for particular contacts, have it appear when you maybe enable what would be considered flip to shush, or they call it flip to glyph here. Basically, the glyph lights can be enabled or disabled as you see fit. If I disable that, that means that the lights on the back will just not come in. It will just be set to sound only. There'll be just vibrations and noises. The lights at the back won't light up unless I enable this option. This is enabled by default. You can actually adjust the brightness of that. I don't think it shows you when you adjust that, but we can try that. No, sadly it doesn't. So you just have to take this graphic at its word. But if I just adjust that downwards, we'll see that I think that seems to be the perfect brightness level for me anyway. But let's go into the ringtones. This is for calls, not notification sounds. You can see that you can add a contact, so I can add anyone who I am friends with as a contact for a specific ringtone or specific light setup at the rear. Heading into default options, there are 10 unique sounds. You actually have to tap this here and you'll see, you may be able to hear that as well. There are unique layouts for each of the lights and you can adjust these, and as you can see, it's showing you that. That will just show in the rear, and that will do that when someone calls me. The lights will go like this. So basically there are 10 options for ringtones. You can adjust these as you see fit. Find the one that suits you best. When someone calls you, if you happen to have your phone face down, it's probably going to be a good way to recognize who's calling you, or if you have a call waiting. Again, you're going to have to remember these though, because they're quite intricate. If you can remember the layout, or you can remember what they're doing, then that's good for you. I'm not someone who can spot these instantly, but let's go back and I'll show you the tones for notifications. These are things like text messages, sometimes from like applications such as Gmail, WhatsApp, that kind of thing. But these are a little bit more simple. So you can have something simple like just a rear dot using that charge icon down here. And then they get more intricate as you go on, but obviously these don't last quite as long as the phone ringtones. Nothing too drastic. Pretty simple, but yeah, quite a nice way to give you some sort of customization for that backplate, especially as it's clear and it's one of the core selling points. It's quite a nice little extra. I quite like this. It's just really interesting way to differentiate yourself from the rest of the Android space, but especially considering that we don't actually have notification LEDs anymore. You can also adjust this to have it for Google Assistant feedback. So if you ask the Google Assistant to maybe just check the time for you and you have your phone face down, this will light up. The back panel will light up. I'm not going to show you that on camera in case I activate any unwitting phones and Nest Hubs and Google Assistant smart home speakers out there for anyone watching. But I think one of the nicest ones, or one of the most interesting ones, especially if you have this at your bedside, is the charger meter. So when you plug this into a wall outlet, you'll see just how much progress has been made, what percentage of this particular bar at the bottom is filled with charge. So for instance, 50% should be about 50% that lighting. And I think that's one of the neatest ways and probably the simplest ways to quickly check when your phone is on charge, especially at night time. It may get a bit distracting though, so one to use sparingly if you do have it at your bedside. As I mentioned, Nothing OS has its own version of flip to shush, or flip to just quiet your phone, like found on Pixels. This is just called flip to Glyph. Effectively, when I put because I have this activated, if I put this phone down on the table, it'll flash to let me know it's been activated, and that means that all notifications now will be silenced. Do not disturb mode is activated, and it will just flash. I'm pretty sure vibrations are still enabled, but it will just quickly show me a flash for the notifications as it would. Quick way of entering do not disturb mode, and it's nothing particularly new or groundbreaking, but it's just a renamed version of flip to shush for Nothing OS. The final aspect here that I think is notable is that you can actually set the Glyph lighting at the rear to actually, with a bedtime schedule, effectively just means it won't turn on during those specific hours, meaning you won't be dazzled overnight or dazzled early in the morning. I think that's definitely something to adjust, as these lights, especially in a dark room, can get quite bright, at least in my experience. One more thing I want to show in Nothing OS that I think is slightly different and definitely reminiscent of old OnePlus devices is the About device page. So if we head down here and head to the About phone, as you can see it says Nothing Phone 1. If we tap that, you'll see something very, very familiar to any of you out there who's used a previous version of Oxygen OS, which runs on OnePlus devices and has since been changed. Effectively, the About phone page now has a icon or PNG showing you just what particular model you have. Obviously, I have the black version of Nothing Phone 1, so it's shown me a black image of my phone. It says what software info I'm currently running. As you can see, that's the current build number that any of you out there who've ordered one will be running right now. There's no secrets there. We're running the May patch from standard, as this is going to be bi-monthly patches. Hopefully that means the July patch will be coming very soon. Maybe there will be a post-release update to provide that, but everything else here is pretty standard, but the layout is slightly different. So we have name, software info, storage available, gives a little bit more information on the hardware, device serial number, what we're using for our SIMs. Obviously that's obscured. As we'll see, we're running the Android May 1st security patch and the June 2022 Play System update. Sadly, we're not running the latest Android security patch, but hopefully we'll get that in one of the post-release updates, as the July patch is the most recent. But if we tap that, we'll just see that we're running the Android 12 update. So we have the Easter egg there. The only thing we have to talk about now, though, is the camera UI, which is slightly different to what you'll see on Pixel. So we'll bring the Pixel 6 Pro back over and we'll show you the camera UIs side by side. So here we have a pretty bog standard camera UI. There are some slight differences that you'll notice, and I'll try and point them out as best as I can. But with the main photo UI, you have a floating zoom option or camera option. So if I tap that, that will change to the rear ultra wide, the Samsung JN1 versus the Sony IMX766 on the front, the rear facer. That's 1x and 2x. That would just be a digital crop. Whereas on the Pixel 6 Pro, it does have a periscope zoom lens. So we start getting into the realms of better zoom capabilities on this sensor. But we have the standard portrait modes over here and here. But with the Pixel 6 Pro, you don't actually have options before you take a shot to adjust the f-stop rating, which you do here on Nothing OS and the Nothing Phone 1, which I think is quite interesting. You can set that as low as f0.95 if you want that really nice thin focus and background bokeh. It is set as f5.6 as standard when you set that up. There's also the video modes, which they run at 4K 30 is the maximum refresh rate. If you do have HDR enabled, which I have here for HDR video, that is capped at 1080p 30. If I disable that, we can adjust this settings for video. That's 4K 30, that's capped out. You can see that's grayed out. Tap that again, we can have 720p 60, 720p 30, 1080p 60, 1080p 30. There's no 24 FPS options there if you're into your cinematography. Seems to be the pretty much industry standard for that. Overall, we have a slow-mo mode, which I think is just usually just built into the video modes here on, or as a video setting. It's got its own dedicated mode here on the Nothing Phone 1. But there is some extra modes over this side that you'll see that we don't have on the Pixel phone. There is a time-lapse option, panoramic video, which you do have here, macro, which uses the ultra-wide to get those ultra-close shots of smaller details and smaller things, and the expert mode, which I think is one that might be of interest to some people out there. So we tap the expert mode, you get access to deeper controls such as the ISO, you can adjust that as you see fit, the shutter speed, white balance, and autofocus, I believe. Autofocus point. I don't know if that's... Yes, you can adjust that. Sorry, you can adjust that for manual focus and choose where you want to focus. Obviously, I've set the white balance far too high. But you can adjust these and restore those to default settings. There's options as well to use that ultra wide, again in the expert mode. But that might be of interest to some people out there, especially if you want to shoot in raw image, and adjust settings and maybe tweak things after the fact. But overall, it's a pretty standard camera app, as you'd expect. But one interesting aspect that I think not many people out there will notice, and one thing that I think really makes this Glyph lighting useful in terms of video and photo, is when you adjust those flash settings, there is the flash at the rear. You can set that always on, but there's also a Glyph fill light. So you can effectively use this lighting bar to have a nice soft fill light for video and for photos, and that gives something, it definitely gives it a little bit of an edge when you're in darkened environments, because it'll give it a cleaner lighting that won't be quite as distracting. So there won't necessarily be the light flashing and pinging off different subjects, shiny people, shiny surfaces. That fill light should make all the difference to your photos. And so there may be some, I definitely would like to test that to see how it works in practice, but for video especially, That might make this quite a good thing for like vlogging and things like that, but obviously you don't have that on that front-facing camera. But overall, I have to say, camera application, very well thought out, very well laid out, pretty much as you'd expect though for what is technically a budget camera system with pretty impressive specifications. Let's take a quick look at one of the few pre-installed applications on this phone, and that is the Recorder app, which has been made in collaboration with Teenage Engineering. So you get this instead of the basic stock or the traditional Pixel Recorder application, which you can still download from the Play Store and use as standard, but this is what it looks like. It looks very analog, at least as far as I'm concerned. You can adjust these settings here to basically have focuses on the background environment noises, so be that a coffee shop or anything like that. Normal would just record the audio in your surroundings, but you can also use a voice focus option. So for instance, I'm talking now and I hit that record button. That means it should hopefully pinpoint my voice rather than any other background noise if I happen to have music playing, or again, background noises like in a coffee shop or cafe. Obviously you can pause that as you need to, save that, see your waveform, and you can adjust this and rewind, much like you could like a tape deck. Reminds me a little bit of a tape deck or a vinyl. You can go backward and forward. You can even increase the speed at which you fast forward and rewind, or slow that down as you see fit. But yeah, it seems very interesting so far. It's quite a nice little recorder application, but does it make a great deal of difference? I'm not entirely sure. If I hit save, just saves that to my library, and I have a library of options available, and you can see just what I've recorded right there. Hit play if I need to. Play there as well. Just gives you little play options. But overall, pretty standard application that you can adjust some settings of as well. You can choose higher resolution formats for audio if you need to, but overall, nice little extra. Not too much bloat there. There isn't much else to really speak of in terms of like pre-installed applications. This has just been set up offline, so there's absolutely nothing added to the phone apart from the recorder, the default camera application, and just a few things with the Nothing OS launcher. So overall, pretty lightweight right out of the box. Right, that is practically all of the core differences in the initial Nothing OS 1.01 build. I think we're likely to see more changes and tweaks, at least at a later date and as this software develops. And it is worth noting that at least at this point when we were delving through, there's no NFT widget that we can see right now, and we don't have a Tesla on hand to check out that system level control that was mentioned during the announcement keynote. It'll be kind of interesting to see just how those work in the flesh, but until then, we'll have to just take Carl Pei's word for it. Let me know though what you think of Nothing OS down in the comment sections below. It is really close to what you'll find on Pixel, but with a few extras that I personally quite like, and I think overall the device runs really smoothly too on top of that, which is always a kicker. Hopefully though you enjoyed this deep dive into Nothing OS, and stay tuned for more content involving this device and other devices out there coming very soon. Until next time though, this is Damien with 95 Google saying thanks for watching, and I will speak to you later.